welcome to LawWiser On Air, where we decode complex legal developments and policy reforms shaping India's future. I'm your host, Alokita Tangri, and today we're diving into a game changer, quite literally, for Indian cricket and broader sports governance. The National Sports Governance Bill 2025 aims to bring long awaited structure, transparency, and legal accountability to national sports bodies, including the BCCI, a space traditionally seen as autonomous and outside the purview of central legislation. To help us break this down, we are joined by Russell A. Stamets, partner at the Circle of Counsels. Welcome, Russell. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you, Alokita.
Great. So, Russell, let's start at the top. What exactly is the National Sports Governance Bill 2025, and why is it being called a landmark reform in Indian sports administration?
Well, it is a milestone, but it's a milestone on a journey that India's been traveling on for some time. We've had attempts at reform and legislation, and I think 2003, 2007, 2011, 2013, we've had various efforts to put into place rules and regulations that, or if not regulations, rules that will help organize and formalize the tremendous energy that India has in sports, but bring it up to a fashion that is commensurate with India's standing in the economic standing. As part of that, that's a large change, and it's a journey. And I would say that the governance bill, as proposed, is simply part of that journey and an important part of that journey. But it's one that India has been on for some time, and it makes me think of other parts of the law, like the listing agreement, which was helped bring corporate governance to Indian corporate setting, and in a gentle way, like in a gradual way. So it gave parties time to think about how these international regulations should be, which of them are relevant to India, which of them are embraced, which suit that sort of thing. So this is very much a not overdue, but part of a really, I would say, wise journey, even if it's not intended as a wise journey, as progress into bringing a super important sector for India into formality. So in that way, the bill is both a landmark, but it's more like a milestone upon a journey of improvement and encouragement and professionalization, and that India has been on for some time.
Okay. Interesting. So, historically, the BCCI has enjoyed a unique legal status, staying outside the RTI Act and other central codes. What has allowed that kind of insulation, and what has now triggered a shift in that approach?
Well, historically, every sports federation in India has its own history and own story and own dynamics, and BCCI in that way is simply another one of the institutions that's made its way and done the best job possible. And I think we have to agree that BCCI has been an excellent shepherd of the game in India and has been really one of the global players. So that said, it also operates as part of the country. I mean, it has India in its name. It represents the country. It has an interest in developing the sports spectrum within the country and larger, and really is arguably one of the most successful, one of the most visionary, and one of the most powerful sports bodies on the planet. It has a particular role to play in helping bring other sports along in the country. It's a national resource. And it's perfectly normal for the country to turn to it and say, you should be part of this. You should be actually a leader of it. And to be a leader, it means to be subject to the same rules as everyone else. Yeah. And so simply, this recognizes both BCCI's extraordinary success and importance, by saying, okay, now you have to bring everyone else along. And so that means the same rules for everybody. We all breathe the same air. We're all here for India, and you're part of that. And I think taken in that light, it makes a lot more sense. It's not a loss of anything. This is really BCCI success, bringing everybody along into a more modern era. And I think they're ready for it, and I think they're welcoming of it.
Interesting. Wow. So, a key provision in the bill is the requirement for annual recognition by the National Sports Board. How could this alter the way the BCCI functions?
So um, I think when we look at this bill, we have to, if I answered every question with "I don't know yet" or "we don't know yet," that would be absolutely correct. Because we actually don't know. We don't know what will be adopted finally. We don't know how it will be implemented. And every activating legislation has rules alongside of it. And really, uh, the um, the primary bill is like pointing the finger and say, go build a house on that mountain. And then the rules come along, and implementation, it tells you what kind of mountain, what kind of house you're going to build, and where, 2-story or something like that. So what kind of house are we going to build? We don't know exactly. So, I think, but I think it's safe to predict that 1 year renewal for major federations is unlikely to survive, and nor should it survive in terms of implementation. One of the benefits of the formality under the governance bill, which hopefully becomes an act, is that it offers parties predictability. It offers transparency. It offers formality, whereas sometimes things can be a little ad hoc in decision making. So this sort of predictability is one of the primary benefits of introducing this legislation. And so consequently, if you're being approved for 1 year as the national sports body, is like not being approved at all, because you can't sign long-term contracts with either. How can your players plan? Uh, if you substituted a body, it might choose different priorities. If you have a track and field body, then it might emphasize track over field, over these sorts of things. So there's no way that, or I think there's little practical likelihood that that the BCCI is going to be placed on a 1 year annual renewal, because that essentially means you're never permanent,
Right.
and no sporting body can. It simply, it does not serve any party.
Makes
It
sense.
serves zero parties. So that part will have to die away. Um, whether you like the legislation, whether you don't like the legislation, whether you like a particular body or not, there's absolutely no way you can put somebody on a 1 year chain, because all they'll be concentrating on is renewal,
Right.
when they should be concentrating on the long-term development of sport in India and opportunities for Indians to play sport at the highest level. And that's what should be their focus, not some annual compliance process for renewal.
Right.
That won't survive.
Hmm. That's very interesting take. So, the bill also proposes that sports-related legal matters must first go through a new national sports tribunal. What's the rationale behind that, and how could it shift the legal playing field for athletes and officials?
Well, as a lawyer, I'm obviously excited at a new tribunal, but one of the reasons I'm excited is it can bring um, specialization to particular areas. One of the advantages, some people complain about the tribunalization of law in India, but it has many salutary benefits. And one of those is a body of expertise that is singular and focused on areas of merit and areas of particular concern that require more than generic considerations of justice and fair play. And so I think that this can be a very valuable innovation for all the parties involved. We have to say there will be people who will be disappointed by this and who will lose by this, and there will be people who will win by this. But on balance, I think the winners are almost certainly going to be the the athletes, which is a constituency that otherwise suffers through court delays and things like that. Really, aside from interim relief, court action is really no relief for an athlete whose sole chance, the focus of their 13 years of training might be access to a single event, and that is their life. So you need a tribunal. So having a tribunal dedicated and sensitive to those issues of timeliness and importance, is very valuable. And the human focus of sports is very, very particular. This is not simply about money. The governing institutions are responsible for channelizing the hopes and dreams of Indians to make the most of their efforts. That's a very, very, very important task. It's very distinctive. In its essence, it's focused on justice and it's focused on equity, because, as we say, access to sports at the highest level is very fleeting. It can be, we're dealing with victories that is, tenths of a second, millionths of, hundredths of a second in some cases, or a single ball or something like that. Now expand that to its impact on human dignity and the right to participate and access. You can see how this is very, very particularized and requires people who are sensitive and to understand that. It's not, if you give somebody 10 crores and they've missed out on the opportunity that their family sacrificed for 20 years to put them in that position, they're not, most people, 20 crores will be like dust in their hands. In this situation. So having a tribunal that is alive to this, that can make institutions alive to their responsibility to the humans and the opportunity that it covers, it's, I think, very, very salutary.
Right. So when we're talking about athletes, as per my understanding, one of the most welcome provisions is athlete-centric. Institutional grievance redressal, safe sports mechanisms, and athlete representation. So how do you see these changing the culture within Indian cricket administration, now that we're talking about athletes?
The funny thing is that we're going to be having commercial and personal discussions about sport in a vastly different way as this works out. And some sports in India, such as cricket, are already highly evolved commercially. They're operating on an international basis. These are, I don't want to say dollar-based discussions, but this is internationally sophisticated commercial discussions with many, many parties, including those representing the athletes involved. Not all sports, in fact, almost few, if any, sports in India are at that level yet. And many more should come to that level. And this will represent an opportunity for the individual athletes to have a voice in that discussion that they've really lacked up until this point. Maybe individuals had some power because of talent or something like that, but we're talking 5, 10, 15, 20 individuals out of crores of people who are engaged in sports here. So the provisions regarding athletes and the redressal mechanism represents a real stride forward. Not a perfect stride. Not we don't know, again, who knows what it'll be like implemented, but it's a very, very important start in a very, very important direction. And I predict over time it's going to help individuals and help grow sport in India tremendously.
Definitely a lot to see there. We are all waiting. So, as with any reform, there may be resistance. So, what sort of objections are we likely to see, whether from BCCI leadership, state associations, or even legal experts? And do you foresee any legal pushback?
Well, anytime you take choice out of people's hands, they don't surrender that happily. particularly when the benefits may not lie with them. The benefits of that exchange, of including athletes in the discussion, lie primarily with the athletes initially. And although I would argue over time it will benefit everyone, but to a regional administrator who's not used to taking any suggestions, this is going to sting. And there are plenty of ways to object to that, and people will. But primarily, we're talking about loss of who gets the money and who gets the power. And I think that particularly, even giving a small slice of that power and voice to the athletes that comes out of somebody's pocket, and it should. It should never. They always should have had that voice. They always should have had that say. So that'll be there. I think there will be vigorous discussion on what the rules are, and there should be. We don't have rules framed. We don't know what those will look like. We don't know if those make sense, and it would be very natural for sports to say, "This doesn't suit me. This doesn't suit our athletes. This doesn't suit my region. This doesn't work for us." And it has nothing to do with me making money or me making power or something like that. So those are necessary discussions. Those are going to be animated discussions in many cases, because we're talking about the reallocation of money and power and choice. And that is never a quiet conversation, but it's one that's rightly picked up by the central government, rightly picked up and driven from the national level, because it's something that has to be done at that level. It can't be done at the regional level. So yes, there will be very vigorous discussions. This is India. People have a voice. They're going to say something. There are many interests involved and many legitimate interests. And but that doesn't mean that anybody's losing necessarily. But everyone will try to make sure they don't lose. So let's see how that discussion goes. But I think it's going to come out pretty well in the end.
Looking forward to the discussions. We'll all get to know. So now, finally, let's look ahead. So if we implement well, how might this bill reshape cricket administration in India over the next decade? And conversely, what are the legal and reputational consequences if the BCCI resists compliance?
I think the BCCI is going to take up its leadership role that's commensurate with its economic and sporting achievements. I don't see any way that they're going to play a spoiler in sports in India. There may be discussions, there may be options, there may be choices or things of that sort, but I don't see. I don't. Everyone will find a way to help BCCI enact its leadership position and bring sport along. I don't anticipate in the end that BCCI will be anything but a leader and anything but supportive of Indian sport. I don't see that happening. So that's straight up. What I think the long-term effect for everyone, and again, I credit BCCI with this, is this legislation and the professionalization of sports administration in India will help create economic opportunity, many multiples of what we see now. We've seen in the past that for instance, in football, where international agencies had discussions with domestic agencies that were difficult because it involved domestic interests that were in contravention of that. So I think the legislation allows a framework that is transparent. We have a code of ethics. We have a dispute resolution mechanism. We have a law that will apply to everyone, large and small. I think this is going to dramatically increase the transparency for all sports in India and drive, I think, foreign investment in this sector like we haven't seen before. The risk levels for foreign investment in Indian sport will drop dramatically with the proper implementation of this law. And already people are interested in being a part of the India growth story. I hate to use story, but because it's not a story, it's a real thing. But I think that the legislation is going to dramatically de-risk investment in Indian sport and make opportunities for people to participate and fund sports in a way that was not possible before. So I think the whole ecosphere is going to grow dramatically. I think BCCI has shown the way of how to do that, and I think that both their example and their behavior is going to lead the way for growth of sport in India in a dramatic fashion. The next 10 years are going to be fantastic. We might have a couple of grumbly 2 years, 3 years, but I think the arc is the arc for Indian sport under this legislation is going to be terrific.
Great. So thank you so much, Russell, for such a clear and insightful breakdown. This bill definitely has the potential to reshape the broader culture of sports governance in India. As always, the key will lie in implementation, intent, and institutional integrity. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to LawWiser on Air. Until next time.